All right, hey everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing. I want to bring you a video that one of my subscribers asked me to do, okay? And it's a really good topic, but it's really deep topic, okay? It is very, I should say, variable, a lot of variables, okay? What he wanted to see or hear me talk about what's my process and how do I choose the right crankbait for the situation. And a little bit more than that. Why do I choose plastic over wood or balsa? What color? What bill design? How deep does it go? How tight does it wobble? How wide does it wobble? A lot of variables, okay? So I'm going to do my best to at least talk about how I go through that process, okay? Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is based on experience, okay? So I can't emphasize that enough, that you're going to need to just get out there and experiment. But I mean, there are literally, hundreds of manufacturers, thousands of different types of crankbaits on the market. They're not cheap. So you could spend a lot of money and waste a lot of time, make a lot of casts with some of these baits, and they're just not going to get it done for you, okay? So I'm going to talk about, I guess I'm going to start for the first thing in the spring, okay? And then I'll just take you through the season on the crankbaits that I like to throw right out of the gate. Even now, I mean, they haven't been on the water in a few weeks, but the last time I was throwing what I consider a cold water wintertime crankbait. I have a bunch of them rigged up still in the boat. I do throw a lot of crankbaits, okay? So with that said, again, based on experience, and this will, again, straighten out that learning curve a little bit for you. I like to throw the old school wiggle wart right out of the gate, okay? It works in water that's 50 degrees, a little colder. It's not a real tight wobbling crankbait, but it excels in clear water, rocky situations, but cold water. I mean, will it catch a bass in warmer water? Most likely, but I typically throw this first thing in the spring. March, April, a little bit into May. Again, when we get into May, late April, May, water temp is in the upper 50s to low 60s here in the Northeast, okay? So while it's in that 50-degree range, I like to throw the old school Storm wiggle wart, okay? And these are all original wiggle warts that I've just, kept, over the years, but they catch fish. They produce and they catch fish. This is a plastic bait, mostly crawfish color. I'm a real big fan of some of it's basically translucent, little orangey craw color on the lip, translucent belly, okay? Hopefully you can see that. Favorite crankbait. Now again, it depends on water clarity. I'm going to get a little bit more louder with the orange, with a little bit more color in the water. Sometimes, these greenish baits, greenish back, a little bit orange on the bottom, green back. When the crawfish are in a certain stage, and you only know that, if you see the crawfish or you're looking at live well and they're not reddish orange or dark brown or whatever, or a little blue on them, but they are that greenish color, that's when I'll go to that bait. okay? Again, plastic bait, reason I throw it just works, okay? That's pretty much my deciding factor on that bait. Now, could I throw a balsa bait? I could. You know, another, you know, I'm just looking here. I mean, I'm not a fan. I throw a lot of square bills, as you guys have seen, but I'm not a big fan of them first thing in the spring. Okay, they're just, because the way a square bill is designed to be fished is almost as fast as you can reel it. You're cranking that thing on a, you know, 6-2 to 1, 7 to 1 retrieve reel. So it's deflecting, it's fast. I mean, it's bouncing and just deflecting off of things and coming through cover. That's the best way to fish it, to keep from getting hung up, but that's also the key to getting bit on it. Reeling it really slow, it's not as effective. So I'm not using that crankbait right out of the gate. Water's gonna get up. We gotta get past the spawn for me to really throw a square bill. And then it's game on from that point. Now, since I'm talking about square bills, I'll jump into the plastic balsa thing. Most of the square bills I throw are plastic, okay? Lucky Craft, some of these old school Rebels, but I do throw the old school Bagley balsa crankbait. I love this bait in the fall for the most part. It is a little bit bigger profile that compared to the Lucky Craft. I'll see if I can pull one of these out. Yeah, let me pull one out. If I can get one out. Okay, so 1.5 square bill. RC, they don't make them anymore. RC 1.5. You can see it's a little smaller. Flat out catches them. Just absolutely flat out catches them. It is tied on in every tournament that I fish that's during the square bill season, okay? Tremendous amount of confidence in that bait. But, like I said, I do throw the Bagley, old school balsa Bagley. This deflects very well. This is, you know, chartreuse and black back. This is orange belly. My favorite color. Again, this is going to be in somewhat heavy stained off color muddy water. Again, it pushes, it gives off a lot more wobble and displaces a lot more water. And I like this bait. I'll throw this bait in the fall a lot of times. Balsa, I mean, if I'm fishing around a lot of snaggy wood, this bait will hit and deflect, and I can stop it. It will float up. If it hangs like a little bit, I can stop it. This bait's going to float up, and I can get it up and over whatever that was and continue my retrieve. Okay, that's a big advantage of the balsa. And you know, I have a box full of them here. Okay, so going forward, you know, in the spring, pre-spawn, I have a box that's labeled spring cranks. Okay, every one of my boxes, you can see, is labeled for what they are. These are spring cranks, and I think you can see that I do favor the orange to red color in the spring. Why? Again, it works. It works. But, you know, I have a number of different baits here that I use in the spring. I mean, just here's a big O. I love the big O. Big O square bill, but this doesn't really act like a square bill, so I don't use this as a square bill. The new Strike King Gravel Dog, just started playing with these things last year, and they're already proven to be in this box for my springtime cranks. Again, you can see that it's basically orangey brown color. So zoom speed. I mean, this is just an awesome bait. This is just a great bait. Bomber. California bomber. You see, it's got a different style bill on it, but again, it's red, orange. So I have a box specifically for springtime crank. So part of the equation is how deep am I fishing? Most of my crankbait fishing, like 98%, 95 to 98%, is shallow water cranking. What do I consider shallow? 9 feet or less, okay, is my comfort zone. I've spent a lot of time on the water fishing shallow running crankbaits in, like that wiggle what runs about on 12-pound test fluoro. It's about an 8 to 9 foot depth crankbait. I like the bait to hit the bottom, but not all the time. Okay, and I'll explain. Whenever I'm fishing around cover, could be an outside weed edge, could be over weeds, could be I'm trying to get to the bottom. If it's rocky and there's nothing else there, like there's no muck, there's no leaves, there's no moss, there's no slime, shallow grass coming up off the bottom, I'll hit the bottom. Okay, I'll dredge the bottom, especially if I'm trying to imitate a crawfish. I'll make sure that I'm hitting the bottom. But to me, once every 3 casts, I want to contact the bottom or the grass edge I'm fishing. I want to make sure I'm close to it, but I'm not one for burying it up every time. I'm not one for grinding the bottom the whole entire way back. Forward-facing sonar has shown that there's a tremendous amount of fish that are suspending around us. Yes, bass are structure related. They're around structure, they're on grass edges, they're on drops, they're near rocks, wood. We know this, okay? And, fishing shallow, you end up being a visible target fisherman, okay? We like to see what we're fishing at and what we're throwing at. 360 has helped a tremendous amount, showing me what I can't see, so I can fish around it thoroughly, okay? But so all this to be said, I like the crankbait now to be higher in the water column, okay? I'm getting a lot more bites, and this is kind of a big deal, a lot more bites up off the bottom, coming to the boat. Okay, when the bait makes that turn to come up, that's when I'm getting bit. A lot of the guys are talking about how many fish are suspended out around them, and they're fishing up. Like this new, forward-facing sonar is not really new anymore, but the general rule of thumb is to keep the bait, whether it's a little minnow or a crankbait or jerkbait, whatever it may be, above the fish. They don't like to go fish down, something that's underneath them. They like to ambush from below, okay, up. Okay, that's why top water works so well, in my opinion. So that being said, you don't necessarily need, a bait that's gonna hit the bottom. You want it, in my opinion, even if they're relating to the bottom, and a lot of times in the cold water, they are relating to the bottom, okay? And once the water starts to warm up, and fish are schooling and things like that, now they're up off the bottom, and they'll feed up on bait fish and so forth. So that's what I try to do now is a crankbait that is not necessarily dredging the bottom. All right, so keep that in mind. I mean, and now you could fish, pretty much almost any crankbait you want as far as the depth is concerned, as long as you're over the fish, okay? So, and if you don't know that, and we don't always know that, but assuming that the fish are gonna be related closer to the bottom or structure or whatever it may be, you're fishing that bait above them, like a jerkbait, you're fishing above them. Obviously top water, you're fishing above them. Okay, so you can do the same exact thing with a crankbait. Color-wise, I mean, you're gonna see, I mean, it comes down to, you know, natural bait fish colors, you know, shad colors. Up here in the Northeast, you know, we have a lot of perch, golden shiner, white perch, yellow perch, of course, you know, and the shiners and pond minnows and things like that. We don't have shad per se. We do have some alewife in Connecticut and Maine. Again, that's very shad looking fish. Smelt, long, lean, silver, bright silver, white belly, black back. Okay, so you're gonna see that color represented quite a bit, you know, in crankbaits. Okay, I like that. Of course, your natural crawfish colors. A lot of chartreuse, and it's just, you know, the chartreuse again. It's that you're trying to imitate those colors of those fish, and once, if the water has any stain to it at all, when you get down deeper, like out of sight, you can't see the bottom, you know, 4 or 5 feet deep and deeper, that chartreuse will help you. Okay, the chartreuse and blackback, orange belly is just a phenomenal color. Chartreuse, blue back, orange belly, fantastic color. Your bait fish colors. You know, even though I don't really consider lipless, you know, it's a different category of crankbait. I like gold an awful lot. One of my favorite, I'm just gonna pull the whole deal out here. You know, is very shad looking bait, but it's gold, dark green on the back, but gold, and then it transitions to translucent. I love gold baits. I fish gold blades on my buzzbait, gold blades on my spinnerbait, gold blades on chatterbait. It works. It just works, and that's why I throw it. You know, your chrome blue, again, you know, for bait fish. Of course, I have my reds, oranges, again, springtime. Very tight wobble, which is what I prefer in the spring, a tighter wobble. And you don't have to rip that bait when you're fishing it. You know, you can slowly fish a rattle trap style bait or a lipless crankbait. It still has that tight action and still has that rattle and noise, if that's what you want. Water warms up a bit. I'm just a square bill nut. I just absolutely love throwing square bills. I have 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, depending on, you know, if I have a limit or not, or I'm around bigger fish. I'm gonna fish a bigger square bill, okay? These tend to be more bait fish pattern, you know, splatterback, chartreuse blackback, white grayback, you know, like a copper color back, you know, basically white on the bottom, copper sides. Again, I'm trying to imitate small perch, and I will catch a lot of perch. You know, that's a favorite of mine. I throw it a lot. I have a lot of them tied on. You know, here's original RC 1.5 copper shad, blackback, copper back sides rather, a little chartreusey and pearl bottom. So very bait fish related. Here's a whole box of Big O's. I love the Big O square bills, and again, I don't traditionally fish these like a square bill. I don't fish them the same way as I fish the Lucky Craft or the Bagley. Okay, it's a little more open waterish. I just like the action of them, and you know, their colors, their patterns. This is just a phenomenal crankbait for imitating a crawfish. Okay, so I love them, absolutely love them. and it treated me very well. So over here, again, you know, going back to the depth, I have this entire box is deep diving crankbaits. Okay, big. Rapala, DTs. Summertime for me, summertime bait, late summer, going into the fall. Deep diving crankbait I'll throw in obviously deep water. And again, you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, 18 to 20 feet of water I can get down with some of these crankbaits. A lot of fish in the Northeast, they don't see that. But a lot of times though, like I talked about earlier, I'm fishing these deep diving crankbaits above the fish, over the fish, okay? I may or may not hit the bottom with them. And again, I'm looking to make contact with whatever I'm fishing near, whether it be a rocky point or a rock pile or a deep weed edge, like a deep weed edge that's, you know, 20, 25 feet deep. You know, get down onto a candlewood when it had the grass, those deep edges. Then I'm fishing the outside of that. I'm fishing the outside weed edge with this crankbait. It's not necessarily going to hit the bottom, but I want to have it close enough to the weed edge where every third cast or so, I catch a little bit of that weed. That just tells me that I'm throwing the bait where I want it, okay, close to the weeds. All right, if I do happen to hang in the weed or whatever it happens to be, as long as it's not a piece of wood or brush or something like that, I'm snapping it right out of there. Okay, I'm just literally stopping, reel, drop slack in the line, and just snap it up out of there. And a lot of times that'll trigger the bite. Or get their attention, and then you get the bite just a few cranks later that caught their attention. They swim up to it, it's taken off, then they eat it. I have box labeled medium deep diving crankbait. You know, it's again a lot of shad pattern. There's another bomber. Just a great bait. This bill deflects really well. You see how wide it is, much wider, you know, than the body of the bait. It's very thin diameter. This is another colder water bait, but it deflects real well when it hits something. You can throw this around some stuff and it won't get hung as bad. Let's see, flat sides. So let me show you some flat sides. So this is, I spend a lot of time throwing these flat sides. They're pretty cool, you know, and you know the Fritz side bait is you know, basically a square bill, okay, but not in the true sense where I'm going to throw you know, a square bill, but these have proven to be a fish catcher, okay. Red, see the bait style, the bill style right there. So it does deflect. It is wider than the body of the bait. I also like, this is Art's Garage. You can see that nice bill right there. Okay, so this again, it's just a nice cold water bait. Flat side, you know, you can't forget about this, you know, Rapala shad wrap. Throw these first thing in the spring. I use them really cold water, and it's a balsa bait, okay. And you know, I got to put, typically the one I have one rigged up, a couple rigged up. I have lead tape on the belly, and that's because it is balsa. It does float. I think Rapala designed these when they designed these way back when. They basically, you know, back then you just chunk and wind. You cast it out and reel it in. And it has pretty cool action doing that. You can catch them doing that. But I like to throw it basically spin rod, because they don't weigh anything. And I'll weight the belly with that tape, that lead tape, throw it out, get it down there. It does dive pretty good. It gets down there. And then I'm fishing it with the rod tip. I'm not just reeling, you know, on the spin reel. Pull it down, and I'll just sweep it. I'll pull it. It does its thing. You can feel it doing its thing, and I'll stop. And with the lead tape, it's not rising up real quick. It will still rise up slowly, but I'll pull it, leave slack. It's almost like a jerk bait without jerking it. pull it, leave it sit there for a bit, pull it, and I'm only pulling it 1.5 to 2 feet tops. Because if there is a fish nearby, I don't want to pull it away from them. If they're slow, I've seen so many times where they're, even on a jerkbait, when you can see in real clear water, you'll see them coming. And if you just let them, you just let the bait sit there and let them come, they'll eat it, okay? But if you didn't know he was there, and I guess you would now with forward-facing sonar, but without it, you're fishing old school, you would never know, okay? So just benefit of the doubt, colder the water, the longer you want to let it sit there. And here's another one. Here's another one of those fritz sides. Okay, fritz, pretty easy bait to throw and fish. Nothing to it. They cast good and they catch fish. That's all I know. But I love these little flat sides. I have some custom ones that some friends of mine have made for me, and I love fishing these, but I'm very protective of them. These are literally one-off baits that they want and say, hey, I want another one like this, or a couple like this, or a couple more like that. They won't be the same. They won't look the same. They won't act the same. They won't fish the same. So when you find one that catches fish, and it's just one of those things where they only come out when I know it's right to throw them. And again, these are wood baits, balsa baits. And typically during a tournament. All right, so I've probably forgot more than I've talked about with how to choose the right crankbait. But at the end of the day, the factors you want to consider is water temperature, depth, water color, what phase are the fish in? Okay, so knowing that it's pre-spawn, that it's cold, okay, that's going to determine the baits that you're going to use. You're not ripping a crankbait. You're not fishing a square bill. You're fishing something that has a lot of action in a small space. Okay, colors that work for me are crawfish color, baitfish color. Again, depending on what's going on with the bait situation, with the water color. And you're going to want to fish, again, it's trial and error. Okay, so trial and error. If you go into like the show, it's upcoming. There's going to be a lot of crankbaits for sale. And I mean, if you see me there, please, get my attention. We'll definitely come over and I'll steer you in the right direction on baits that I think, are catchers. And I've bought a lot of crankbaits and a lot of baits, and man, that thing looks awesome. And I'll fish it and I'll fish it and I'll fish it, and then especially when I'm fishing any bait, if I feel it's the right time, the right place, and I am making a good, solid presentation, not a half-assed presentation. I've put a lot of thought into where I'm throwing that bait, how I'm fishing it. I got my line size right. I got the rod set up right, and I have fished it in what I feel around fish properly, and I don't get bit. That bait is done. That's a flea market bait for me. And it could catch a ton of fish for somebody else. I don't know. That's just how I am. But so that's my determining factors. Again, not to just be redundant, but it's water temperature, water clarity, phase of the fish. Are they pre-spawn, spawn? I don't throw a lot of crankbaits during the spawn. Okay, when they're doing their thing, I'm looking at them. I will throw top water baits during the spawn, but I'm typically not throwing a crankbait. Okay, I'll throw a chatterbait. I'll throw a top water, but I'm fishing targets and I'm looking at them. Okay, once we get past that and the water temp gets up, we're talking upper 60s, 70s, and they're all done with their thing. Now I'm fishing my square bills. Now I'm fishing my shallow to medium diving crankbaits. And again, I'm looking at what type of forage am I trying to imitate? Are there a lot of shad? Are there a lot of yellow perch? Are there a lot of white perch? sunfish, bluegill, perch, white perch, yellow perch, golden shiners. What's the bait I'm trying to imitate? What's the depth I'm trying to target? And that is going to determine the bait that I'm going to throw. Okay, and I know this is real long-winded, but I'm trying to answer the question the best I possibly can. If you're still with me in the video, thank you very much. I appreciate it. But certainly reach out to me in the comments if I did answer your question. If I didn't answer your question, especially like the opportunity to do that. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll help you anywhere I can. Okay, so, all right, we're coming to the end of January. We're getting ready for the show, New England Fishing Expo here in Marlboro, January 31st, February 1st and 2nd. I'll be there all 3 days, and I look forward to seeing everybody there.